All right, class, can you see the charting?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, great. So just real quick for the new students, just to let you know that most chartings are like this one. This is anatomical. I'm getting feedback, so I don't know, maybe somebody's mic. You can turn it off, and then when you have questions, turn it back on. So there are 32 teeth in the mouth. Okay, this is called the universal numbering system. And as I was saying, this is an anatomical chart. So if you see the numbers, they start on the upper right. So above the line is upper, below the line is lower. One starts on the upper right and it goes all the way across to number 16. And then it drops down to lower left and it starts from 17 and it goes all the way across to 32. So there's 32 teeth in the mouth. With that said, if you see this line right here, this small little line, imagine though that this line goes all the way from up here, all the way down. So from the nose down to the chin. That is called the midline. Okay. What the midline does, it breaks the arches up into quadrants. So the top arch is called maxillary, the bottom arch is called mandibular, and each quad is called upper right quadrant, upper left quadrant, lower left quadrant, and lower right quadrant. So there's two arches, four quadrants, and 32 teeth in the mouth. So far, does anybody have any questions? Okay, so we're going to start on the page 193. And it says basically list the condition depicted by each charting symbol. Please note the areas in gray would normally appear in red within a dental chart. These are areas in which treatment has yet to be completed. The areas in black indicate treatment that has already been completed. So in reality, there's two colors that we use, red, blue, and then sometimes, of course, black. Right now, I'm going to use blue for the first picture on your page 193. So down on the bottom of that page, you have a depiction of a circle here. Now, it might not be a perfect circle because it's really hard to ink this here. Let me also make this a little bit thicker. Okay, so can you guys see this circle over here on number 1?
Yeah.
Good. And then number 2, your diagram looks something like this, and it's colored in. And number 3, your diagram looks something like, we'll pick this tooth, something like this, and it's colored in right here. Okay, so right in the condition, I'm going to tell you what's the condition that you should have had. For A, your picture says A, B, and C, but I picked 1, 2, and 4, okay? So this would be your letter A on your workbook, your letter B, and your letter C, just so you guys know. So number 1, what did you guys write for number 1? Somebody?
I didn't write nothing, but
I thought it was amalgam filling.
It is. It's an amalgam filling. So anything that's colored in like this in dark blue, it's amalgam, silver filling. So number 1, this is an amalgam filling. Now the surface is occlusal. That surface is the biting surface. So O is occlusal. So this is an amalgam occlusal filling. So you could write AM O for occlusal filling, FLG. Number 2, this is an MOD amalgam filling, mesial occlusal distal amalgam filling. Questions so far? So for the new students, mesial is closest to this midline that I mentioned to you here. The midline, again, is right over here. So any surfaces closest to the midline, that is a mesial. Any surface away from the midline, meaning the back of the tooth, so this would be the back of the tooth, is the distal. So back here of a tooth is the distal. So the backs of the tooth. So the orange represents distal. Anything closest to the green is the mesial. Okay, so again, this is an MOD amalgam filling. And then number 4, this is also an amalgam filling. But where's the surface at? Who can tell me?
Buckle.
Buckle, or what's another name for buckle?
Facial.
Good. So if you wrote buckle or facial, I'm okay with that. Usually the posteriors are buccal, B-U-C-C-A-L, or another name is facial. Don't be making fun of my handwriting on here. It's very tough to write on here. The abbreviation for buccal is what?
B.
Yep, and for facial? Class, for facial, what's the abbreviation?
F.
F.
F, yep. Okay, so if you notice where the roots are, this is where you will find the buccals or the facials. So with that said, what's in the middle of your mouth?
Tongue.
The what? I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Is it the tongue?
Yeah, your tongue. So the tongue is in the middle of your mouth. So I'm going to give it a different color. So right here, picture that this is your tongue. Okay, right here. This is your tongue. What surface is that tongue?
Lingual.
Good, lingual. So L. L is the abbreviation for lingual. L-I-N-G-U-A-L. Okay. So now we've gone pretty much, there's one surface missing, but we'll talk about it a little bit later on. So coming back to number 4, this was a buccal or facial, whichever one you wrote, amalgam filling. Now, the other thing that you should know is classifications. So classifications, and by the way, we will go over this. So if you didn't get it today, that's fine, especially for the new students. The older students, we've gone over it a little bit. So keep on going over it more and more. But I will tell you that number 1, this is considered a class 1 filling. Okay. So I'm just going to write here the classification so you know this is class 1. Why? Because class 1 are pits and fissures. Pits are found in the middle of the tooth. So anywhere you see a filling in the middle of the tooth, it is called a class 1. This here is considered a class 2. Why? Because anytime it affects the mesial or the distal, which is the interproximal, this is the areas you should be flossing. Those are considered your class 2, okay? Mesial or distal, only on the posterior. Number 4, this is considered class 5. Why? Because it's at the gum line, okay? So all these little things, these Roman numerals, you should have written on the conditions. So amalgam fillings, they all They all are amalgam fillings. 1 is an occlusal, 2 MOD, and 4 facial or buccal, whichever one you wrote. And then number 1, class 1, number 2, class 2, and number 4, class 5. Questions? Okay. We are going to continue. Now, if you turn to the top page of your workbook on 194, you had a picture that looks somewhat like, let me get my, you had a picture that looks somewhat like this. It was just a circle. Picture the circle a little bit more in the middle. So what surface did I say was in the middle?
The tongue.
That's, well, the middle here, but the middle of the tooth.
Oh, the tooth. Oh.
Occlusal.
Yes. So this is an occlusal. Now notice these two types of fillings. This one is outlined, but this one is colored in. So if it's colored in, I said it represents what?
Amalgam.
Good. If it's not colored in, it represents what? What's a tooth colored filling called? Composite, class. Composite. So please write that down. Tooth colored fillings are called composite. Now, this is a composite filling on the occlusal, okay? You have another picture right next to it that looks like this. What would that be? I just told you an outline filling is a what?
Composite.
Composite on the distal.
Composite. Okay, so this is a composite. Now, it is furthest away from the midline. What is that surface called?
The distal.
Good. This is a composite filling on the distal. And there's one that looks like this. So I'm going to come down here. So who thinks they know that one?
Composite on the buccal.
Not on the buccal. Remember, this surface here is furthest away from the midline?
Mesial.
No, furthest away from the midline. Furthest away.
Distal.
Distal. But it's touching right here.
And incisal.
Yes. So DI, distal incisal. It's not colored in. So what kind of filling is it?
Composite.
Good, composite. So this is a DI. Some people might call this a DIF because it's on the facial side. So DI, you could write DI if you had DI or DIF. Okay. And it is a composite filling. This is the surface away from the midline. Okay, away from the midline. Now, right next to it, you have one that looks like this. Right there. A little bit smaller. Again, what kind of filling is this?
Composite.
Good, composite. What surface is this?
Facial.
Good, facial. Okay, so now let's go back to classifications. So this one here is in the middle. So remember what I told you, classifications, if it's in the middle, what's it called?
Class 1.
Beautiful, class 1. So
one.
guess what? Look at number 1 and 5. They're both the same. The only difference is one is outlined and one is colored in. So they both have fillings on the occlusal. So those are class 1 fillings. One is an amalgam though, and the other one is a composite. Now, teeth that are from 6 through 11 and 22 through 27 are considered what type of teeth in the mouth?
Anterior.
Yes. So from here, okay, so this group right here from 6 through 11 and 22 to 27 are considered anterior teeth. Now, there's a reason why I did that, because this tooth has a composite filling on the distal. This tooth also has a composite filling, amalgam filling on the distal. And I had told you that the classification is 2 on the posterior. But when you hit the anterior, the classification is different. What is the classification?
3.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
3.
Yes, 3. Okay. So when you hit the mesial and distal on the anterior, which this is the distal, then it is a class 3 filling. On the posterior, if you hit a mesial distal, is a class 2. Okay, so it's just saying where the fillings are at. The fillings are interproximal, again, where you floss, but the difference is that now it's on the anterior versus the posterior. Okay, so again, outlines are composite, colored in, amalgam, and we'll get more into classifications. Let me finish these classifications. So this one is at the gum line. Who remember which one is at the gum line? What class?
5.
Good, 5. At the gum line is 5. Again, it doesn't matter if it's composite, like 27, or 4. It's an amalgam. They're both at the gum line. Gum line is right here where these lines are. Okay, these are the gum lines. And 26, we did this one that I told you was DIF, or just DI if you put that. What classification is that? We actually haven't spoken about that one yet.
6.
Not 6.
4.
Yes, 4. So make yourself a note. Anytime the incisal, so again, 6 through 11, 22 through 27 are anterior teeth. Anterior teeth only have surfaces that are called incisal. If you run your tongue along the edges of your front teeth, those are called the incisals. Where you chew on the back portion, those are called your occlusals. So the front only has the incisals. The posteriors from 1 through 5, 28 through 32 have occlusals. 12 through 16, 17 through 21 also has occlusals. I would definitely rewatch this video and take lots of notes because you're going to need them. This will be your life moving forward. You need to know classifications and you need to know surfaces. So again, as I mentioned, we will be doing more of these exercises. Now, in your workbook, you have the next symbol underneath the one that I just did on the top of page 194, the second symbol. Honestly, it looks like this one. Okay, so I'm not going to draw it again. So this was an MOD, amalgam filling. MOD, amalgam filling. The third symbol in your page 194. So you can't really see all the outline, and that's kind of a little bit, I know why you guys had a little bit of hard time. But the outlines would have looked something like this. It would have been an outline here, an outline in the middle, and so first of all, let's talk about the outlines. Outlines represent what? What does an out, if I outline the entire tooth, circle it around, what does that,
Intact.
No, not impacted.
The
Right on
crown?
the crown portion. So it's a crown because it's on the crown portion of the tooth. Okay. So anytime you outline the crown portion of the tooth, it is a crown. Very simple. You outline the crown, it's a crown. So the crosshatch lines, these lines that I made diagonally, represent what? Does anybody know?
Gold.
Gold or metal. So the crosshatch lines represent gold or metal. But notice how on the buccal side, the buccal or the facial side, there is nothing on it. If it's just outline, it represents what?
Porcelain.
Porcelain. So this crown that I made on number 29, it is a porcelain fused to metal crown. So in short, PFM. This is a PFM crown.
Oh,
Porcelain fused to metal. Now, if I were to put the crosshatch lines on the buckle part 2, then it will change the crown, and that's the next crown on your page 194, that fourth picture. So in other words, let me make it here then. Again, I'm outlining the coronal portion of the tooth, so that's the crown portion of the tooth, so automatically that is a crown. But now, instead of just having crosshatch here and here, now it also has here and here, making this crown a what type of crown?
gold, metal.
Gold, very good. So 29 has a PFM crown, 28 has an all gold crown, okay? Good job.
I got a
Okay.
question, Mr.
Yeah, sure.
What's the difference between a gold one and a metal one?
So the gold one, you literally see the tooth gold when they smile. The
Oh,
metal one is the inside of the crown. So on the
okay.
outside, it is porcelain, and on the inside, it is metal. So people usually don't see the metal part. You might see a little bit of the metal on the lingual side, but who's going to be looking in your mouth like
Yeah.
that? When you smile, you should only see the porcelain. That's why the porcelain is represented on the buccal and the facial, because that way you know that that crown is porcelain. And it's very hard to draw what it looks like on the inside. So that's why they have the symbols depicted like this. Okay,
Oh,
but good question. Anybody else with any questions before I move on? Okay, so the next one has a symbol like, and by the way, class, I'm using blue, but any of these symbols can be blue or red. So if it's blue, who can tell me what blue represents?
Needs to be done.
I'm sorry?
Needs to be done.
Not needs to be done, because blue represents what?
mm,
Already done.
Already done, work completed. Okay. If it was in red and you got a picture, red always signifies in the world like a warning sign, warning, like a red stop sign, a red light. Red signifies that work needs to be done. Okay, so anytime you see blue, they either blue or black, they either came in with that work already done, or we completed it. If it's in red, then it needs to be done. We will be doing a chart that you have also in your workbook on page 199. We will be doing that chart, but I want to do the symbols first before we even get to that chart. So the top of page 195, now you have a symbol that looks like this. What does that symbol represent? It's not a 5, it's an S.
A sealant.
Yes, a sealant. Now, the next picture on page 195, there's 2 S's. Now, what's missing from that picture is that it's supposed to have this around it also. 。 So there's a capital S and a lowercase s. And like I said, it's missing the outline around it. So what does a capital S, and it should be, it's not really two capitals. It's usually a capital S and a smaller s. What does the S stand for?
Stainless
Facial.
steel crown.
Yes, stainless steel. And what does the outline stand for?
Mm,
Remember, look at 28 and 29. What does the outline stand for?
Crown.
Crowns. So this is a stainless steel crown. Okay, stainless steel. So stainless steel crowns are usually the temporary crowns that we put on baby teeth until they get their permanent tooth. So SS means stainless steel crowns. Again, all these symbols, as I mentioned before, they can be in red. If they're in red, they need an amalgam filling. They need a sealant. They need a composite if it was in red. If it's in blue, they have an amalgam filling. They have an MOD filling. They have a sealant. So notice the difference. Blue means they have it done already. Red means they need it. So either one. Now this one definitely has to be in red. This has a diagonal line across it. So what does this diagonal line mean?
um,
Needs to be extracted.
Yes, needs to be extracted. It is in red. Now, some computers or softwares or even some offices might actually do the X, and the X means still the same thing, needs to be extracted. Now, if I change that X to a blue one,
already extracted.
yeah, it's already extracted. It's been extracted. So now that was your page 195. Now we're moving on to 196. So on 196, if I take my red and I go around the entire tooth, including the root, what does that depict?
Mm,
Impacted.
Yes, impacted. So a lot of times your impactions might have more than one symbol, because if a tooth is impacted, what's the next step for it?
Extraction.
Yeah. So this circle around it right now represents impacted. If I draw a diagonal line or a red X on it, that means that because that tooth is impacted, it needs to be extracted. Once that happens, then I would take my blue pen and I would go over it with the blue pen, and that would signify that we took the tooth out and the tooth is no longer there. Okay. The next one has a depiction like this on number 20. If you look on number 20, what does that stand for?
facial.
No, this line right in here.
Oh,
It is on the facial side, but this time I am putting it in the root side, in the root.
Root canal treatment.
Yes, but it's in red, so it needs a root
Needs
canal
to be.
treatment. If it was in blue, it had a root canal already. Now, let me find a tooth that I can draw this on that you can see it. I'm gonna go right here. Who can tell me what 13 has?
An
Some,
abscess.
I'm sorry?
An abscess.
Yes, an abscess. Sometimes it will be colored in and sometimes it will be an outline, but an outline on the root tip of the tooth is an abscess. So an infection on that tooth. Good job. The next one, I'm going to change my color pen. I'll leave it. So the next one looks a little bit like this. Now this is going to be tough because this is really hard to write in here. Okay, what is that symbol? You have it on the bottom of 196.
Miss, what chapter is it again?
We're in 28.
28.
Where you been all this time? We've been doing 28.
Because I'm on 28, but I don't see that.
Page 196 on the last picture, the bottom of your symbols there. 196 in your workbook. Okay, class. So this is a post and core. Okay, so write that down. Post and core. If it's in red, it needs it. If it's in blue, it has it. Now, we only do post and cores after a tooth has had a root canal. Okay, you cannot put this in a tooth that did not have a root canal because we would destroy the nerve. So the post and core would only be put again after a root canal. Questions before I move on? Okay, I am moving on to page 197, the top of it. So there is, oh boy, this one is going to be tough. It looks something like this. Hey, I did a good job. Okay. What does that look like?
Right.
Yeah.
I rotate.
Yes. The tooth is rotated to what area of the mouth? The arrow represents furthest away from the mouth.
Distal.
Yes. So it's rotated to the distal. If the arrow was pointing the other way, it would be rotated to the what? What's opposite of distal?
Mesial.
Yes, mesial. So again, distal is furthest away from the mouth, mesial closest to the mouth. Again, we will have more exercises on this. Okay, next picture. Let's do it over here. This is the most common area that you will see this. So there's two lines in the middle of a tooth. What does those two lines represent?
A gap.
Yes, a gap. There's a name for the gap, a diastema. Okay, diastema. So the gap is in red if the patient wants to fix it. A lot of patients love their gaps, so they don't want to fix it. If they don't want to fix it, we would do the lines in blue just to represent that we already asked them and not to be asking them over and over again. Do you want to do something about that gap in your mouth? Because eventually they'll get pissed off that you ask them a gazillion times, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, in that same picture on your 197, this symbol is next to it. So again, I already told you what this symbol is, all right? Needs a post and core because it's in red. If it was in blue, had a post and core. The other symbol, and it's a little bit backwards in your in the workbook, but this is where it would be in the mouth. So this would represent right here. Okay, can somebody tell me furthest away is what? What surface?
Buckle.
No, furthest away from the midline.
Distal.
Distal.
Oh,
Yes,
so.
distal. And the edge of the tooth is called what? In the front.
Buckle.
Not buccal.
Incisal.
Incisal. So this here is where the tongue is. What's that other surface?
Lingual.
Yep. So here we go. We have a D-I-L. This is on the lingual side. Any of these surfaces here closest to the tongue are the lingual side. So this is a D-I-L and it's in red. It's going to need a composite filling on the D-I-L. Okay, D-I-L. All right, good job. All right, moving on. This here, it would be here. It looks like it's on this type of tooth. So again, I'm going to outline the, whoa, sorry, got a little bit out of my circle there. I'm going to outline the tooth. Okay, what does the outline, the coronal portion represent?
Crown.
Crowns. But these are going to turn into different kind of crowns, because if you notice in your workbook, they're connected. So when they're connected, they're no longer considered crowns. They're considered a what?
Middle? No.
3-unit bridge.
Yep, a 3-unit bridge. So when crowns are separated, let's go back to 28, 29, and 30. These are 3 different types of crowns. We talked about that. They're not connected at all. This is a gold crown, a porcelain fused to metal crown, and a stainless steel crown. These guys over here, between 18 and 20, I am going to connect them. And in your workbook, there's spaces between the teeth. But of course, in the mouth, we don't have those type of spaces to connect them. So we would put some type of bar representing that these 3 teeth are connected somehow, some way. So I connected 18 to 20 by making this bar in the middle. Y'all see that?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, also in your workbook diagram, you have an X here. So we just finished talking about what the X represents. What does the red X represent?
Extraction.
It needs to be extracted. Remember,
Yeah.
make sure when you're talking about it in charting, this is shorthand, you have to either say it needs it or it has it. So in this case, it's red, it needs it. The other thing in your workbook is that it has these crosshatch lines. Again, I mentioned to you what crosshatch represents. What does it represent?
Crowns.
The outlines around the coronal portion
Gold.
represents crowns, but these crosshatch lines represent what?
Gold.
Gold or metal. Okay, so I put the crosshatch lines. I'm normally they put them here too, but I want you to still see the bar, so I'm not gonna put as many. Okay, so metal in the inside, but on the outside there's porcelain. So what kind of bridge is this?
PFM.
Good. PFM, porcelain fused to metal. Okay, so your picture on 197 should be a porcelain fused to metal bridge. It's a 3-unit bridge. And excuse me, when you have a missing tooth, that part on the bridge is called a pontic. When you have 2 teeth that the bridge holds onto, those are called the abutments. Okay, so this is a 3-unit bridge, porcelain fused to metal, PFM, and 18 and 20 are your abutments, and 19 are your pontics. On the bottom of 197, you have the same picture right here. If you look at number 29, you have the same picture, but it looks like it's in red. So again, if it needs it, it's a porcelain fused to metal. If it has it already, it would be in blue. Okay, so red needs, blue has. I am going to go to the top of page 198. So now on page 198, you have an arrow underneath the tooth that faces this way. What does that arrow depict?
Drifting distal.
Not distal.
Mesial.
Yes. So now the arrow is pointing towards the midline. If the arrow was pointing back, it would be the distal, but because it's pointing to the front, that means the mesial. So that means that this tooth
Oh,
is drifting to the mesial, meaning that it's like slanted or moving forward. It will usually be in red. And then again, once we fix it, we would take the arrow and turn it blue. But when it's drifting, we put it in red. Okay. All right. Next symbol, it looks like this. Let me find a tooth. I'll put it over here. Whoa, I slipped. Okay. All right. Who can tell me what this means?
it's already done.
It's already done. Very good. And what does that represent?
Implant.
An implant. So this represents an implant. An implant is put in an area. This tooth would have had two markings, by the way. Prior to it, it would have had a blue X representing that it's missing because we can only put implants in areas that are missing. Please note that we normally don't put implants on third molars. Okay, so third molars don't usually get implants. Usually teeth that get implants is anywhere else in the mouth but third molars. So it's in blue, it's represented that it's already been done. If it was in red, it needs it. The next symbol on your page 198, just you cannot even see it. Unfortunately, but it would be just over here. Okay, my outline is a little bit straight. Okay, so it's only outlined on the facial side. So what would that represent?
Composite.
Yes, but in this case, when it's the whole entire facial, it represents something else.
Veneer.
Veneer. So this represents that it has a veneer. If it was in red, it needs a veneer. Now let me just show you something else that's really similar to it. So if I do it on both sides, if you look at number 10, if I do it on both sides, now what does it represent? Remember, if you outline the portion of a tooth, it represents a what? What do I have over here on 28, 29?
Compose.
Crown.
30? What
A
do I?
crown.
Yes. So on 28, 29, and 30, I have the coronal portion outlined. When the coronal portion is outlined, it represents a crown. So 28, 29, 30 have crowns, but so does 10. But guess what? 10 doesn't have those crosshatch lines. So if they don't have any crosshatch lines, what does that represent now? What type?
Porcelain.
Yeah, all porcelain. So this is an all porcelain crown. Okay. And then your last symbol on page 198 looks like this. Let me change my pen. And also let me go a little thinner because it represents this right here. Okay, so it should look kind of jagged. Again, it's not easy writing on here, but it looks jagged. So if it looks jagged, what would the jagged part means? Like it's sharp.
Chipped or shattered.
I'm sorry?
Chipped or fractured.
Yes, chipped or fractured. So this tooth is chipped or fractured on the surface away from the mesial. What is that surface? What's the opposite of mesial?
Distal.
Yes. And it's also on the edge. So it would be a DI, and it's on the facial side. So this would be a DIF. The tooth broke off, right? In the interproximal area, furthest away from the midline is the distal. Okay, on the eye, that's where I told you to run your tongue over your front teeth on the edge. Okay, those are your incisal. And it's fractured because it has these jagged lines. Okay, so DIF. So, of course, this tooth chipped or fractured. If it's in red, it needs it. If it's in blue, it has it. Okay, any questions, class? Now, of course, this is not something that you're going to get one time. So we will be doing it over and over again. I do want to spend some time also doing page 199. I won't be able to do it today because I have a meeting at 10. But I will do it on Monday, and then we can even go over more symbols. So again, I just want to kind of review and reiterate. So I'm going to go back to number one. So number one has an amalgam filling, okay? And it's on the occlusal. That is considered class 1. Number 2 has an MOD amalgam filling. That is considered a class 2. Number 3 has a sealant. Number 4 has a facial or buccal amalgam filling. That is a class 5. Number 6 has an occlusal composite filling. That is a class 1. Number 6 has a distal composite filling. That is a class 3. There's nothing on 7. Between 8 and 9, there is a diastema. We put it in red so the patient wants it fixed. Number 9 has a fractured on the DIF. Okay. Number 10 has a porcelain crown. Number 13 has an abscess. Number 15 is rotated to the distal. Number 16 is missing. 17 is impacted. 18 to 20 has a 3-unit bridge that is that needs a porcelain fused to metal crown bridge. 19 needs to be extracted. So 19 is considered the pontic, and 18 and 20 is the abutment. 20 also needs a root canal. 21 needs a post and core. 22 has an implant. 23 has a veneer. 25 needs a composite filling on the distal incisal lingual. 26 has a composite filling on the DIF and is considered, by the way, both of these, okay, this is also considered class 4. Number 25 and number 26, because as soon as it involves the incisal edge, it is a class 4. 27 has a facial composite filling, and that is a class 5. 28, all gold crown. 29, PFM crown. 30, stainless steel crown. 31, drifting to the mesial. And 32 needs to be extracted. And again, in your book, it's one diagonal line, but in the office, I know that most softwares have an X. So if it has a red X, it still needs to be extracted, or one diagonal line, it still needs to be extracted. Questions, class? No?
Wait, I got a
Okay.
question.
Yes.
Are you gonna put this on YouTube?
Yes.
Oh, okay. That's what
When,
it be.
yeah, when I get a chance.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
All
But
right,
that's
thank
why I said subscribe to the channel, so that way,
you. Yeah, subscribe.
yeah, when it goes on, you know that it's there, okay? All right, let me come back to here.